What's going on, you guys? Petplatypus here, and the only way to end off Halloween month this year around would be to talk about my favorite series, One Piece. And One Piece just so happens to have a very, very quintessential Halloween arc, and that is Thriller Bark. I actually just so happen to have finished reading Thriller Bark not too long ago through this. It came out in September, but I didn't buy it until this month. And I figured that means the stars have aligned. Let's talk about Thriller Bark. This is a very good, very well written, funny, engaging arc with a really cool atmosphere, lots of great fog and forest shots, and just got the spooky castle and the zombies and the picture frames with the eyes that follow you and they even jump out and attack you and all kinds of crazy shit. Very, very Halloween. And like I said, well written, funny, very important to the overall story, but not a fan favorite actually. I've never really reviewed just an arc by itself, so I guess I'll start off with just a summary of the events. The Straw Hats enter the Florian Triangle, where they meet Brook the Skeleton. They meet him, Luffy immediately asks him to join the crew, and he actually says yes, which is extremely sudden, but they find out he doesn't have a shadow, and they find out that it was taken by a place that is at a place called Thriller Bark, a giant island-sized ship designed to be straight up out of Halloween. It's there that they get separated from Brook, captured by Thriller Bark, and they are basically on a big hunt to get Brook's shadow back so he can join the crew. They also start helping some of the people there who have had their shadows taken. The crew goes their separate ways, typical One Piece formula. As far as the early arc stuff goes, crew gets separated, they do their own things. What's cool though is that once the crew's separated, you get to see things from Nami, Chopper, and Usopp's perspective. Them being the cowards, they're scared of everything, which also fits with the Halloween theme. But what's funny is once they're done, and the rest of the crew comes to rescue them, these are all the more badass members of the crew, the braver members of the crew, and they face all the same trials as Usopp and them, but because they're braver, it's done with much more comedy. It's a lot funnier to see them just beat the shit out of all the enemies in front of them. Now they tame the fucking Cerberus thing. Luffy walks up to this zombie and just pushes him back into the ground. Some really funny action. Them getting hit by Perona's ghost is of course hilarious. And as the arc progresses, we're introduced to more characters. We find out that the villain is one of the 7 Warlords of the Sea, Gecko Moria, which is massive for the overall story, introducing a warlord that we hadn't seen before or knew anything about. Maybe his name was dropped, I'm not too sure, I don't think so. He's introduced, very creative design, also a very creative power. There's a really creative arc overall, just in general. I mean, zombies are nothing phenomenal, but the One Piece zombies are all very creative and varied looking, and it's very, very cool. And it all builds up to Oars, this massive, like 3 times the size of a giant, prehistoric motherfucker that they put Luffy's shadow into. And he is as dumb as Luffy and as funny as Luffy, but he is just as fast, but he's on a whole other scale in terms of size. And you get him wreaking havoc and fucking everything up. And then the Straw Hats are like, you know what, fuck it. It's gonna be daytime. Moria has taken some of our shadows. We gotta get them back. We gotta fight fucking Luffy's zombie. And from there, it's just this awesome, creative, all-out battle between the Straw Hats and Oars, and then eventually Moria gets inside of him and gives him the ability to stretch by manipulating the shadow. Again, a lot of creativity. Luffy comes in with a ton of shadows inside of him. Nightmare Luffy, that's a great fight. And when you think everything's finally done, Moria gets up again. Actually, no, Oars gets up again, excuse me. Then the Straw Hats, once again very creatively, use all of their skills at once to take him out once and for all, break the spine. And then Moria comes in. He gets really, really beefy. Luffy has to fight him, push his body to the limit. They finally beat Moria, they get their shadows back, everything's good, right? No, another warlord who we have seen before but hadn't gotten any characterization from, again massive for the overall story, especially a character like Kuma, he shows up, or has been there actually. He shows up, blows everything up, they're so injured, they're so beaten. Zoro has the big moment, one of the fan favorite moments for Zoro as a character, where he takes all of Luffy's pain, and now he's pretty much out of commission for the rest of the arc, for the most part. And we finally get the backstory that Brook knew Laboon. We've heard about this before, but we get the full story of his relationship with Laboon, Brook's backstory, seeing him before he was a skeleton, you know, because of the revive fruit. And then he says he's going to join Luffy's crew, and they officially gain a new Straw Hat, extremely massive for the overall story of the series. And then we also find out about the Beaver cards, which ties in with Ace, and his is burning, and why is his burning? We'll find out later. That's more setup. And one of my favorite moments of the arc, which might not be everyone's favorite, but one of the moments I really like, not my absolute favorite, but when they leave the triangle, you get the narrator, and he says that ships have been disappearing long before Thriller Bark was ever there, and whatever it was, we don't see it, but we see its massive silhouette. It dwarfs Thriller Bark, you see a glint in its eye, and that's it. And I love that. I love how mysterious that is. I love how foreboding and ominous that is. I honestly don't think we should ever see what that creature is. I think the mystery is so cool and so awesome. Just the fact that it was in that triangle the entire time this arc took place and they never came across it is very creepy, very mysterious, very, very cool. And that's Thriller Bark. Why isn't this arc a fan favorite? Why do some people very stupidly, yeah, I'll come out right there, why do people very stupidly call it Filler Bark? I have no idea. I think the arc's very funny, very engaging, very creative, especially like a term like Filler Bark. Like, you realize a Straw Hat joins the crew, right? Like, you realize they gain a new member. We get introduced to a warlord, characterization on another warlord, like, world building, like, how is this at all anywhere near filler? I mean, you could maybe make the argument with Skypiea, you know, until Dressrosa shut that shit down, but no, like, to call it Filler Bark, I know it's just a joke, obviously, I can take it as just a joke, but to say that this arc is, like, pointless, no, definitely not, definitely very important. Just the fact that a crew member is gained is very important. But some people have said that Thriller Bark is a slow arc, that it's probably too long, and yes, I can agree there. Now, that being said, Dressrosa is my favorite arc, or close to being my favorite. That's without even having finished it, and it's like 100 chapters, and while I didn't finish all 100 chapters, I might sound a bit hypocritical saying, oh yeah, Thriller Bark's too long, yet my favorite arc is the longest arc. But the reason why I think Dressrosa works and Thriller Bark doesn't is because even though Thriller Bark does have massive story progression with Moria and Brook and a few other things like the Beaver card, it could have gotten that stuff done much faster. Like, an arc that introduces these key story things doesn't need to be massive. It probably, honestly, could have been about as long as Subodi Archipelago, the following arc, which is about 23 chapters. Don't quote me on that, I'm not too sure. Whereas Thriller Bark is a solid 48. And yes, that is very long, one of the longer One Piece arcs at the time, and for what it gave us in terms of story, it didn't need to be that long. I will admit that. But I still enjoy the arc. We even get a cameo from a character that Oda created before One Piece, or at least before One Piece was finalized, and that's Ryuma, the swordsman. And he comes from Wano, which we know Wano has been mentioned in like the Punk Hazard arc and everything, so even stuff being set up that early is very, very cool. We get the return of Sniper King during Usopp's fight with Perona, and just so much great comedy, so many creative moments, just, it's such a creative arc. It's probably one of the most creative in One Piece, and that's saying a lot, considering Oda. While I wouldn't say Thriller Bark is like one of my top 5 arcs in the series, I really, really enjoy it. I definitely think it could be like an anime Halloween tradition to watch the Thriller Bark arc during October. It's so weird to say Thriller Bark arc, but whatever. To watch Thriller Bark during October, or read Thriller Bark during October, definitely a tradition I might actually start doing, just because I have DVDs of it now, so why not? And, yeah, the final battle with Oars is really, really badass. The final battle with Moria is a little disappointing. He's just so out of control, and Luffy lands like a couple of attacks. It's cool to see him mix third gear with second gear, but still, it's not that exciting. It's just like Luffy hits him in the stomach or neck a few times, and then he collapses over. So that's a little disappointing, but that's more than made up for by Kuma's entrance and what Zoro does, and so many memorable moments, especially towards the second half. I think it's a very, very good arc. I would give Thriller Bark overall a 8 to 8.5 out of 10. I think it's very good to great. It does have the issue of probably being longer than it needs to be necessarily, and yeah, the final battle with Moria isn't amazing, but the fight between Zoro and Ryuma is very, very cool. Usopp's fight with Perona is pretty cool and funny. Lots of good comedy with the Straw Hats and the zombies. The zombies themselves are so funny when they're running and they get out of breath and shit. It's very, very good, very, very enjoyable. I love the mystery at the end with the giant creature in the fog. We get Brooke to join the crew, and Brooke's awesome. Ties in with Laboon, which just mind fuck for any One Piece fan at the time to have something so far back get brought back like that. Really, really cool, really, really great. Like I said, I'm going to give Thriller Bark a solid 8.5 out of 10. As an arc, I don't think it's a masterpiece. It definitely has its issues here and there. Not all the jokes land, so it's not always the funniest. But overall, I think it's a really enjoyable arc. I definitely think it deserves a little bit more credit than some fans give it. Not that it's as hated as, like, the Davy Back fight or anything like that. But I'd say it's one of the bottom three. Like, the three you hear a lot are, like, Thriller Bark, Skypiea, and Davy Back, at least in my experience. But I really enjoy it. But what do you guys think of the Thriller Bark arc? Okay, still weird to say that, but whatever. It's the same thing with Arlong Park. But anyways, Thriller Bark, what do you guys think? Do you like this arc? Do you hate this arc? Tell me in the comment section below. You can also follow me on Instagram or add me on PSN. I'm petplatypus on both. Follow me on Twitter. I am at DAJFilms. Also give this video a thumbs up and share it on social media. Both those would help me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, or if you like what you've seen here. I want to thank you guys for watching. Happy Halloween, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.